Coming up today on the Nick Craig Show, former disgraced head of the FBI, James Comey, has been indicted by a grand jury in the state of North Carolina. We'll have all the details coming up. And a good Wednesday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand on your own time by checking out the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app. You can also listen online by visiting the website nickcraig.com. Our program this morning brought to you by the Law Group here in Wilmington. Visit them online if you've got any legal concerns or questions, lawgroupnc.com, or give them a call, 910-251-6088. We'll hear more from them as we roll through the program on what is already another busy week here on the Nick Craig Show. Some major news out of the North Carolina judicial system yesterday as former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted by a grand jury here in the Tar Heel State. If that sounds vaguely familiar to you, he was indicted back a few months ago as well, this time being indicted by a grand jury on charges of making threats to harm President Donald Trump. It stems from a 2025 Instagram post in which the former head of the FBI, I'm going to continue to repeat myself on that point because it is important to understand who we are talking about. The former head of the FBI thought it was a good idea to take to social media in 2025 and post the now infamous picture of seashells on what we now know was a North Carolina beach. The picture that he posted, you've all seen it by now. It's up on being kind of reshared across social media. It included seashells on a North Carolina beach that read 8647, with Comey writing with the caption on Instagram, "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." Now, of course, again, this is the former head of the FBI, the nation's largest law enforcement agency, the head of said agency, not a high-ranking agent, not a run-of-the-mill agent. No, the guy that was literally in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigations posted this on his Instagram back last year. And it, of course, sparked a lot of outrage, a lot of frustration from people across the country, which caused Comey to then take down said post and put up a following post. I posted earlier a picture of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which nobody believes, which I assumed were a political message. I didn't realize that some folks associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, so I took the post down. Now, let me take a couple of steps back here. There is no universe that exists where the former director of the FBI, again, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, does not know what those numbers mean. There's no way he doesn't know that. And maybe you could find yourself in the mindset where you say, you know what, let's give old James Comey here the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he didn't know. If that's the case, that he was woefully unqualified to be leading the FBI, right? The two things cannot exist at the same time. He can't be this incredibly intelligent, incredibly smart director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations and then not know what the connotation is with a post like this, 8647 to 86 something for folks that have worked in the service industry or around a bunch of other industries. It means to get rid of. I mean, that's what it means. If you have ever been at a busy bar, busy restaurant, you may have heard somebody from the kitchen or somebody from the waitstaff yelling, "We're 86ing that," meaning they're not making it anymore. I mean, in some cases, in large part, it's because they no longer have whatever it is that they're selling on their menu. So we've 86'd the hamburgers from the menu tonight because we ran out of beef, right? It's a relatively common phrase, especially in an area like the food service industry. So when the former director of the FBI is apparently strolling across a North Carolina beach, which I'm going to be very curious as this goes on as to figure out what beach across the Tar Heel state he was roaming on, where this just magically happened to be in the sand, to play stupid and pretend that that didn't mean anything. Making the point that, I didn't associate that with anything that could be seen as violence. Ladies and gentlemen, this builds on the conversation that we had just a couple of days ago. It builds on the conversation that we started having once again Saturday night, after another deranged leftist lunatic attempted to kill the President of the United States and his high-level cabinet officials minus Kash Patel. For whatever reason, the Shooter's Manifesto, the wonderful Cole Allen, the wonderful 31-year-old teacher from California, wrote explicitly in his manifesto that he was targeting high-ranking administration officials, starting from priority highest to lowest, which would, of course, be the President of the United States, minus Kash Patel. That's who he was going after. That's what he wrote in a text message he sent to his family just moments before he attempted to run into the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Washington Hilton Saturday night with a gun, with an express intention to kill or seriously injure administration officials. And so the conversation in the immediate aftermath of that, and we talked about it in great detail on Monday, was that there is this continued ratcheting up of rhetoric from those on the political left. And James Comey falls into this. He absolutely does. Jimmy Kimmel, who once again, surprise, surprise, is in hot water after he made a very off-color joke just 2 days before the White House Correspondents Association dinner that Melania Trump looked like she'd be a lovely widow, which, of course, if she would be a widow, that would mean that the current sitting president of the United States would be dead. This is the speech. This is the kind of rhetoric that continues to be normalized by the political left. They continue using these phrases. They continue making these claims, and it's all just a joke, right? That's always what it comes down to. And Jimmy Kimmel's apology in the last couple of days, same thing from him. This is just a joke, and you don't understand, and that's not what I meant. I meant they had an age difference. I don't care if you were talking about an age difference or not. You are talking about the death of the sitting president of the United States. And I'm sorry, but you are never going to find me in a position where I'm going to say, that's normalized. That's funny. I am all for edgy comedy. I am all for non-PC jokes. But there's a difference between a political joke at somebody's expense and willing and wishing that somebody would be killed based on their political ideology. And folks, I feel very confident in saying to you today that that's where we are with the political left. They might try and claim, and this is what they always do. It was just a joke. We didn't mean it like that. James Comey playing the village idiot, having no idea what this phrase means after serving as the head of the flippin' FBI for 4 years or 3 years under the Trump and Biden administration. It's unbelievable that these people can try and pass themselves off as such fools and such idiots. James Comey, the head of the FBI, Jimmy Kimmel, one of 3, soon to be 2, late night talk show hosts that are on network television, making, in the case of these late night hosts, tens of millions of dollars a year. And you are supposed to completely ignore any sense of reality, any sense of normalcy whatsoever, and put yourself in the mindset that these individuals, literally at the top of their professions, Comey at the FBI, Kimmel on ABC and network television, that these guys are just buffoons, that they have no idea with what they're saying. They have no idea the things that they post or the words that come out of their mouth and the impacts and the implications that stuff has. I'm not buying into that. I don't. I refuse to sit here and pretend that these guys, oh yeah, it's just an honest mistake. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Just joking about the first lady being a widow. Oh yeah, it's just it's a funny little joke here. What's the joke? That the sitting president, that of course you hate because you're a radical, deranged leftist lunatic, is dead? That's the joke? That's the big laugh? That's the big laugh track that you're getting on that? I mean, give me a freaking break. Give me a break. Nobody believes this garbage. Nobody believes this nonsense of you're just a useful fool, useful idiot for the political left, and you have no idea what you're saying or what you're doing. That time for me passed long, long ago. We are talking today about a North Carolina grand jury indicting the former head of the FBI and James Comey, a news conference taking place in Washington, D.C. yesterday at the Department of Justice. We'll first hear from the acting attorney general in Todd Blanche. We'll also hear from Ellis Boyle, who is the Eastern North Carolina district attorney, who, by the way, I've been following him very closely now for more than a year since he was appointed by the Trump administration. Ellis Boyle doing an absolutely phenomenal job in his position in the Eastern District of North Carolina. Here's the DOJ press conference from yesterday.
Good afternoon. Today, a grand jury sitting in the Eastern District of North Carolina returned an indictment against James Comey on 2 counts. The first count is that on or about May 15th of last year, he knowingly and willfully making a threat to take the life of and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States. Count 2, same day, May 15th, 2025, that the defendant, James Comey, knowingly and willfully transmitting in interstate commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill the President of the United States. Both of these counts carry a maximum term of imprisonment of 10 years. So I think it's fair to say that threatening the life of anybody is dangerous and potentially a crime. Threatening the life of the President of the United States will never be tolerated by the Department of Justice. Over the past year, this department has charged dozens of cases involving threats against all sorts of individuals. We take these seriously, every single one of them. For example, just today in the Northern District of Florida, there was a guilty plea from an individual who threatened multiple political leaders, including President Trump. In the Eastern District of North Carolina, where this case was indicted earlier today, there are multiple threats cases very similar to this one, including one where the defendant pled guilty recently to threatening former President Biden, another one that's scheduled to go to trial this summer, another one indicted, an individual was indicted for threatening Tom Homan.
Now, I'm going to stop the acting attorney general here because this is, of course, a good opportunity and a good time to remind everybody, whether you were the former head of the FBI or some idiot on social media, that if you are going to go on a social media outlet and threaten the life of the president, whether it's Barack Obama, Donald Trump, or Joe Biden, or now Donald Trump again, you are facing the possibility of facing federal charges, and I will note very serious federal charges, with threatening the life of the President of the United States, regardless of whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, a conservative or a liberal, right? The party affiliation doesn't matter here. It should always have been, and I believe it always will be, that if you are going to make threats against the President of the United States because you disagree with him or her politically, because you don't like what they're doing and you don't like their agenda, you should face very serious consequences. I don't care if you're some anonymous Twitter account or if you're James Comey magically strolling across a North Carolina beach that just happens to, wink, wink, nod, nod, stumble upon these seashells, which, of course, we all know he absolutely built that, put together those shells in the 8647 orientation, took a picture to post on Instagram and play, wow, look at this. I'm just strolling on the beach and found these seashells. I mean, it just goes to show you what kind of a loser James Comey really is. More from the acting attorney general.
I say that to say that while this case is unique and this indictment stands out because of the name of the defendant, his alleged conduct is the same kind of conduct that we will never tolerate and that we will always investigate and regularly prosecute. I want to take a moment to thank the hardworking members of the FBI who investigated this case over the past 11 months or so, the United States Secret Service, who also assisted in this investigation, and the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of North Carolina, led by United States Attorney Ellis Boyle, who's standing to my right. This was an investigation that remains ongoing. That's been ongoing for about a year, and that's all we're going to say about it today. I will let the U.S. Attorney Boyle speak now, and then after that, Director Patel. Thank you.
Again, Attorney Ellis Boyle just doing an absolutely phenomenal
Mr.
job.
Attorney General. Earlier today, a grand jury in the Eastern District of North Carolina returned a true bill indicting Mr. James Comey with committing 2 felonies. Count 1, he knowingly and willfully made a threat to kill and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States in violation of 18 U.S.C. 871A. Count 2, he knowingly and willfully transmitted in interstate and foreign commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill President Trump in violation of 18 U.S.C. 875C. Mr. Comey will be given every form of due process all citizens are entitled to receive, to include a trial by a jury of his peers. In the Eastern District of North Carolina, it doesn't matter who you are. We take all threat cases seriously and prosecute anyone who violates federal law, regardless of title or status.
So that's Ellis Boyle, the voice you were just hearing. He is the district attorney, in the U.S. district attorney in the Eastern District of North Carolina, which, by the way, will be very interesting as this case plays out, because there is the possibility the one of the major U.S. district courts in the Eastern District is in Wilmington, where, in fact, James Comey, depending on how this whole thing plays out, where James Comey could end up appearing, which would be, obviously, this is going to be and has already been a major national news headline over the last 24 hours, but could even be a larger story here in North Carolina if the former FBI director is visiting a district courthouse in eastern North Carolina. There's a couple of them, but the largest one, of course, being in southeastern North Carolina in Wilmington. For those that have not visited that area, it's the huge marble building right on the Riverwalk in downtown Wilmington, where we have seen other high-profile cases out of the Eastern District. Eastern U.S. District here in North Carolina. So adding a very interesting North Carolina flair to what is and what will be a major political story. And you heard there the words directly out of Attorney Ellis Boyle's mouth. We treat everybody in the Eastern District the same. James Comey will be getting a fair trial by his peers as prescribed by law, as enshrined in our federal law. But we are going to hold anybody and everybody accountable. Again, whether you're some anonymous fake Twitter account or the former head of the FBI. This is what accountability looks like. You don't get to play dumb. You don't get to play cute. You don't get to play stupid on Instagram when you're the former director of the FBI and claim that you have no idea what you're doing. That does not pass even the most basic smell test. Not even close. We'll hear from James Comey, he, of course, reacting to this, the big tough guy that he is, coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Before that, I want to tell you about the law group here in Wilmington and thank them for their continued support here of the Nick Craig Show. When legal challenges arise, make sure you put your trust in the law group. Going all the way back to 2003, the law group and their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across the eastern half of our state. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating a real estate transaction, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense in U.S. District Court. If so, the law group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved as quickly as possible. They're located in downtown Wilmington and just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. That's 910-251-6088, or online lawgroupnc.com. It's the Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate the Law Group and their continued support of the Nick Craig Show. Our monthly hangout, sorry for being a little late with this, is happening tomorrow night, April the 30th. The month seemingly got away from me again. No surprise there. That is going to be taking place tomorrow night on Zoom. You can jump in 7 o'clock on our Zoom, patreon.com/Nick Craig. We'll be chatting about all of the news and topics of the day and week. All of that available at patreon.com/Nick Craig tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Look forward to seeing everybody as we have another likely fruitful conversation on the Nick Craig Show monthly hangout, patreon.com/Nick Craig. All right, quick break. We'll hear from Kash Patel and James Comey himself. Again, he pretends to be this big tough guy. We'll hear from him coming up in just a couple of minutes as the Nick Craig Show continues, streaming live this morning, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to the Nick Craig Show. Thanks for spending some time with us here on this Wednesday as we cover a major national story that's got a huge North Carolina tie. A federal grand jury in the Eastern District of North Carolina has officially indicted former FBI Director James Comey on charges of making threats against the President of the United States. two different charges in this indictment. First, it charges Comey with knowingly and willfully making a threat to take the life of or to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States. The second count charged in the indictment is that Comey, quote, knowingly and willfully did transmit in interstate and foreign commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill President Donald J. Trump specifically, end quote there, directly from the grand jury indictment served out of the Eastern District of North Carolina yesterday. We've already heard from Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. We've heard from Ellis Boyle, who's doing a phenomenal job in his role as the U.S. District for the U.S. Attorney, I should say, for the Eastern District here in North Carolina. FBI Director Kash Patel, pretty relevant in this conversation, also appeared at the DOJ press conference yesterday. This is what he had to say.
As you heard from the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney, former FBI Director James Comey, has now been indicted for 2 felony counts. While many of you may read this indictment and view this matter as a simple investigation, it is the farthest thing from that. Every single investigation this FBI and our partners at the Department of Justice undertake, especially those that involve the threats to harm or hurt or even kill individuals, whether they hold public office or civilians in our country, are met with the same measure of investigative prowess and tools and personnel in partnership with the Department of Justice as anyone else. As the U.S. Attorney indicated, James Comey will be afforded every matter of due process under the United States Constitution. And as the Attorney General indicated, this has been a case that's been investigated over the past 9, 10, 11 months. These cases take time. Our investigators work methodically. They are career agents, career prosecutors who work these matters. They call the balls and strikes in the field as they see fit pursuant to the facts of the case and the law. They took that information and made a presentment to a grand jury, a jury of peers in the district in which the alleged crime took place. And that grand jury spoke, and that grand jury returned a 2-count indictment against James Comey.
Now, I'm going to stop Kash Patel right here because this is an important part of this story that you are seeing completely ignored by the left. All of the commentary in the immediate aftermath of this yesterday was, oh my God, Kash Patel and Todd Blanche and Ellis Boyle, they are indicting James Comey. That is not accurate. That is not how this indictment process works. There was a grand jury convened in the Eastern District of North Carolina. Where in the Eastern District, we don't know. But there was a jury convened, or grand jury, I should say, convened in the Eastern District that looked at all of the evidence brought forth by entities like the FBI, like the DOJ, and determined that there was enough, and we know that the bar on a grand jury is very low. Let's be perfectly clear about that. But thought and felt that there was enough information to move forward with these charges, as are laid out very clearly in the federal indictment. So this was not President Donald Trump himself sitting in a grand jury room saying, yep, let's charge James Comey. No, this was a grand jury convened here in North Carolina that made this decision. Important part of the story always left out by the political left.
James Comey allegedly threatened the life of the President of the United States. And as you all now know, shortly after posting that threat, he deleted that threat and then issued an apology. All of that information was presented to the grand jury. And Mr. Comey will have his day in court and his ability to speak to a jury of his peers. Thank you.
So that's Kash Patel, Todd Blanche, Ellis Boyle, all speaking at a DOJ press conference yesterday. And no surprise, James Comey, the big, tough, bad former FBI director who, again, just kind of pretends like he seemingly is like some like wrestling character. I mean, it's kind of how he walks around. When every time you hear him talk or see him speak or he posts some stupid video on social media, he's like some wrestling villain that he like seemingly everybody is out to get. So he took to social media last night, of course, wearing a suit in probably a bedroom of his house, recording this video and posting it on social media. He says he's ready to fight.
This time about a picture of seashells on a North Carolina beach a year ago. And this won't be the end of it. But nothing has changed with me. I'm still innocent. I'm still not afraid. And I still believe in the independent federal judiciary. So let's go. But it's really important that all of us remember This is not who we are as a country. This is not how the Department of Justice is supposed to be. And the good news is we get closer every day to restoring those values. Keep the faith.
Keep the faith. What a loser. James Comey is just a loser. There's no other way to describe it. This is not what the DOJ should be doing. This is not what our judiciary should be doing. And who is making him the arbiter of what should or shouldn't be done? Himself? Democrats really have completely conceded any ability to complain about what the Department of Justice or other federal agencies do. We saw for years under the Obama administration, for years under the Biden administration, the complete and total weaponization of the federal government against political adversaries and, frankly, regular, everyday, normal folks here in the United States of America. Whether you are a parent going to a school board meeting to voice your dissatisfaction with biological men in your middle or high school daughter's locker room, you were deemed a domestic terrorist by Joe Biden, by James Comey, by the DOJ in the past. And so now you have to listen to James Comey, of all people, tell you that we are getting closer and closer to restoring what? The democracy, James? He said everything but that. We're getting closer and closer to restoring normalcy? No, you mean getting closer and closer to Democrats being in charge and attempting to throw their political opposition in prison. Or if not, just frankly killing them, which has been the story of the week. After we have seen now a third assassination attempt on President Donald Trump and members within his administration. That's the normalcy, I guess, that Democrats are talking about. That's what they want to get back to. I'm sorry, but you guys opened the can of worms on this stuff. You did. You went, as always, way too overboard on your weaponization of the federal government. You went way too overboard on the politicization of entities like the FBI and the DOJ, and now it's like a slingshot that's broken, right? Pull back a slingshot. What happens if the rubber band snaps? Kind of flings back in the other direction, ricochets. Well, that's exactly what the Democrats are facing right now. For years and years and years, we have seen individuals like James Comey operate fast and loose with the law. Great comment coming in. James Comey is a traitor to his country. James Comey feels that he is above the law. I hope this threat brings everything out. And I saw an interesting comment, a thread from Catherine Herridge, who used to work at Fox News, worked at CBS until they fired her for doing her job. And while she wrote that the indictment against Comey seemed rather weak in her vantage point, she said that the timing is very interesting on this and is likely and could potentially bring out a lot more within James Comey's past. And I would consider Catherine Herridge a very reputable source when it comes to investigative reporting and into matters as it relates to law and the judicial system across the United States. And she writes in her post, while the Comey indictment is thin, it creates leverage that may be holding charge. So very interesting comment there from Catherine Herridge, and will be interesting to see what sort of other conversations and other sort of things come out as this federal indictment now against James Comey plays out throughout the judicial system. In wrapping up the conversation about James Comey, indicted yesterday by a grand jury in the Eastern District of North Carolina, tying that into, unfortunately, what we saw over the weekend with the White House Correspondents Association dinner, we now are listening to and seeing the public pushback against Disney and ABC for their very unpopular host in Jimmy Kimmel going on national television just 2 days before the White House Correspondents Association dinner and joking about Melania Trump being a widow. as he claims, it was a joke. There was nothing funny about said joke. When there's this old adage that if you have to explain a joke, then it's probably not a joke and it's probably not funny. You've heard this before. If you've listened to any stand-up comedy, that many of them have a skit, many of them have a kind of a routine based on that. That's where Jimmy Kimmel is. He then doesn't apologize, of course. He then doubles down on it and defends what he said, which was, quote, Melania Trump is an expected widow. You're talking about the death of the sitting president of the United States. Whether the context is him getting shot and killed, which we've already seen prior to Saturday, 2 previous examples of that. In the case of Butler, Pennsylvania, literally shot in the ear, turning his head just moments before a would-be assassin pulled the trigger. Or the Palm Beach, Florida situation months later. Whether you're talking about that or the Jimmy Kimmel joke of, there's a big age difference. There's Donald Trump is old, and so I guess he's just going to drop over dead at any given moment. Either way, Jimmy, you're talking about the sitting president of the United States. Either way, whether it's political violence, which of course you would applaud, right? Because we saw what happened with Jimmy Kimmel after Charlie Kirk was shot. What did he do? He applauded what happened. He went on national television and made the claim that Charlie Kirk was executed by one of his own. We now know that that could not be anything further from the truth. Tyler Robinson, a radical, out-of-control liberal, thought that it was his justifiable action to shoot and kill Charlie Kirk. Why? Because he had been told by groups like the SPLC, who we also know was just recently indicted by a grand jury in Alabama for doing what? Oh, paying members of the KKK and other hate groups that they proclaimed to be fighting against. Paying people to set up the 2017 Charlottesville Unite the Right rally. That SPLC. Tyler Robinson was radicalized by groups like the SPLC, by people like Jimmy Kimmel, like people like James Comey, and everybody else on the political left that continues to cheer on political violence. And that's exactly what they do. Even in the aftermath of this weekend, with so many of the people on television being at the White House Correspondents Association dinner, even now, just days later, they still cannot come to grips with what they are doing. They still cannot wrap their head around what the kind of words that they use, the way in which they phrase things, and the impact that it has. Let me try and dumb this down as much as possible for any Democrats and any liberals listening to the program here on this Wednesday. When you dehumanize somebody like Donald Trump, when you claim he's a Nazi, he's a fascist, he's a racist, a bigot, a dictator, a this, a that, and the other, you are dehumanizing said individual. Once somebody is dehumanized, you have these mentally unstable people, which is the vast majority of the Democrat Party anyway. You have these mentally unstable people that believe that because this person is no longer a human, because in fact Donald Trump is not a real person, he's Adolf Hitler, because of that, they have the justification, the moral justification to take out the president of the United States. We saw it in Butler, Pennsylvania. We saw the attempt in Palm Beach, Florida. And just days ago, we saw a 31-year-old teacher, surprise, surprise, out of the state of California that took a train from Los Angeles all the way to Washington, D.C. with a gun with the express intent of killing Donald Trump and high-level individuals within his administration. And still, right now, the left seemingly cannot begin to wrap their head around the things that they say and the consequences that it has. Because it's real. This is really what's going on. And going back to a comment I made on the show on Monday, right? This is not a both sides issue. Anybody that claims, oh, well, we've got this issue on both sides. Well, no, we really don't. Well, I can promise you we don't. And it's not the fact that conservatives don't speak harshly about those on the political left. When I was doing morning radio in Wilmington, which I did for over 3 years, it was during the entirety of the Biden administration, I spoke very harshly against Joe Biden. I thought he was a terrible president. I thought the things that he was doing, or in large part the things that he was not doing, his inaction while he was the 46th president of the United States, were incredibly destructive to the United States of America. The largest being the flow of illegal immigration under his and Kamala's watch. And I spoke about those issues each and every weekday morning. Every single day. In some way, shape, or form, there was some conversation about it, or almost every single day. You know what I didn't go on the air and say because I would have been immediately terminated? Was that I hope that somebody kills Joe Biden. That I hope that he dies while he's in the Oval Office. I never would have even contemplated making those comments. A, because I would never say those things. And two, it's incredibly inappropriate to do so. And three, can be easily defined as illegal, making threats against the president of the United States. This is not about being able or not being able to be critical of your political opposition. It is quite the opposite, quite the contrary. You should, and I encourage people to be critical of not only their political opposition, but their own political party. You've heard me on this same very program hammer the Trump administration for their tariff policies, hammer the Trump administration for out-of-control gas prices right now, which are soaring to nearly $4.20 nationally on average. I have no problem being critical of the people I support and the people I don't. There is a difference between being critical and joking about their death. Those are two vastly different things. And so as I was, as I've been reading various commentary pieces and listening to various interviews on cable news since Saturday night, the left continues to go back to this. You see all these Democrats, oh, I thought you guys were the party of free speech. Nobody's saying you can't be mean to Donald Trump. We know you hate the guy. Be as critical as you want. I don't care. You want to continue running down 10 years of the same old stupid, ridiculous talking points about Trump? Go hog wild. I don't care. There is a difference, again, between being critical and wishing and willing on the extermination of the president of the United States. There is a clear distinction there. And it is very concerning to me that so many on the political left cannot wrap their head around that. That they cannot come to the realization that there's a difference between saying, you know what, this guy's policies suck, and then I wish that he was dead. They can't draw the distinction. They are one and the same. And that is a major problem. But we know that the Democrat Party is the party of death and destruction. We know that they don't have any morals. We know that they don't stand up for anything. And so maybe I shouldn't be surprised that the Democrat Party, the modern mainstream media here in the United States, cannot draw the difference between those two very things. They are leading the American people and the country as a whole down a very dangerous road if they don't clean up their act. They are. And I mentioned this on Monday. I don't know where we go from here. I feel like in large part, the damage is already done. I mean, you don't believe me. Put on a MAGA hat and walk around any town. Take southeastern North Carolina. Put on a MAGA hat and walk around downtown Wilmington on a Saturday during the day for a couple of hours. You will have people hurling insults at you. You might even have somebody try and take a swing at you. You're not the president of the United States. You're walking around with a freaking hat on. But this is how deranged the political left has become. This is how deranged they act. And why do they do that? Because they have been told for 10 years now that Donald Trump, the duly elected sitting president of the United States of America, is destroying the very fabric of this country. That the president of the United States is Adolf Hitler. That he is a dictator. That he is an authoritarian. And anybody that supports him supports those very things. So, those on the left feel that they are justified to harass you in public, to maybe even commit some act of physical violence because you're wearing a MAGA hat or a shirt with Donald Trump on it. For that crime of wearing a shirt or a hat that has a logo, a name of the current sitting president of the United States, because of that, you deserve to be verbally assaulted, or in some cases, depending on how out of control and deranged this lefty lunatic may be, physical violence, right? We're going to punch a Nazi in the throat. You'll remember that. Big meme on the political left. Yeah, I'm going out tonight. We're going to punch some Nazis in the throat. They're talking about you and me. That's who they're talking about. Anybody, the 70 plus million people that voted for Donald Trump in 2024. Because again, using their logic, Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler. We are his followers. Therefore, we are Nazis. So you beat that into these unstable people on the left's brain who, of course, think that there's 700 genders, can't decipher the difference between what a man and a woman is. These people are just verifiably insane. You beat that into their head for 10 years. It should be no surprise that they feel justified not only trying to kill the president of the United States, but also physically and violently or verbally attack or assault you. Because it's all justification, right? Because they're protecting my democracy. We're protecting the fabric of the United States of America. We're doing all of these things to save the America. And if we don't act, we've been told that the United States, right in front of our very eyes, is going to crumble. I mean, you just heard that comment from James Comey in his clip. Let me just play the end of his commentary here. Once again, listen to the things that he says. It's the words that they use. This is James Comey once more.
I'm still not afraid, and I still believe in the independent federal judiciary, so let's go. But it's really important that all of us remember this is not who we are as a country. This is not how the Department of Justice is supposed to be. And the good news is we get closer every day to restoring those values. Keep the faith.
Keep the faith. This is not who we are as a country. Oh, we're losing our independent judiciary? Oh my God, we gotta do something about that. Oh my God, we gotta get out and we gotta act. This is exactly what we're talking about. This is exactly the point I'm trying to bring to you. This is what they say. This is how they roll it out to their idiot followers all across the United States, all across the rest of the world, and then go, oh, wow, that's shocking. I can't believe that people think it's okay to physically assault Trump supporters in public. Oh, my God, I can't believe that some radical teacher from California showed up with a gun to try and kill Trump. I can't believe it. Really? You can't believe it? You've been calling the guy a Nazi for 10 freaking years. You've been claiming that he's destroying that our country will cease to exist for 10 years. You're really surprised and shocked that one of your mentally ill sycophants is actually going to act on that? The sad reality is this, and I'll close on this. They know what they're doing. They, like James Comey's apology for his 8647 post, they play dumb. They pretend to be useful idiots that have no concept, no idea of what's going on whatsoever. They play dumb. This is the Democrat tact. When they are pressed on something, when they are called on something and they don't have an answer, they play stupid. We've seen this time and time again, right? Last week, we talked about the Chapel Hill Carborough City School Superintendent, Dr. Rodney Trice, hauled in front of the North Carolina General Assembly, asked why there's sexually explicit content in libraries across his school district. What was his response? I'm a big, dumb idiot. That was his response. I have no idea. I've only got my PhD in education. I make over $250,000 a year, but I have no freaking idea what's happening. I'm just an idiot. I don't know. Oh no, I'm not sure. I don't understand. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand what you're trying to say. This is how they operate. question the left on anything, they pretend that they're literal morons, that they have no idea what you're saying. Very, very dangerous precedent that they continue to send. So again, the James Comey indictment, Eastern District of North Carolina, I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on this because there is a possibility, I'm not going to say a high possibility, but there is a possibility that James Comey ends up appearing in the federal district court right here in downtown Wilmington, North Carolina. So I'll be keeping a close eye on that. We might, depending on when all of that is set to happen, I'll 100% be at that courtroom, at that courthouse to try and get a view of exactly what's going on there. I'll keep you up to date with the latest right here on the Nick Craig Show. Quick reminder, coming up tomorrow night, I'm sorry, a little bit late on the notice. We'll be getting together for our monthly hangout, 7 o'clock. We'll jump on a Zoom call, chat about all of the news and topics of the day. Obviously, this Comey indictment, the White House Correspondents Association dinner on Saturday, continued conflict with Iran, a lot going on. Look forward to chatting with everybody tomorrow night, Thursday, April the 30th, 7 p.m., patreon.com/Nick Craig. I'll also be sending everybody that's a Patreon member an email coming up here in a little bit with that link. So we'll chat with you tomorrow evening. I want to thank the law group here in Wilmington for their continued support of the program. For any legal questions or challenges, visit them online, lawgroupnc.com, or give them a call, 910-251-6088. The Nick Craig Show streams live weekday mornings, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook. Also available 24/7 in your favorite podcast app, and is heard weeknights, 9 to 10 p.m. on WBT Radio in Charlotte. Enjoy the day. We'll do it again tomorrow morning right here on The Nick Craig Show.